There you go. So this video, excuse me, this video here is going to be on perspective. And of course, in the context of storyboards and storyboard artists. Okay, so the following is what we'll be touching on. We'll be touching on frame of reference. Oops, let me just, yeah, we're good. Let me double check. Good. There's perspective. There's summary. There we go. All right. The frame of reference. Okay. The horizon line. Distance, scaling, and convergence. Okay. Lens length and scale. Okay, when we'll be touching on all these. 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective, 3-point perspective, force perspective, incline, decline planes, and multiple horizons. There we go. Okay, so this is what we're going to be touching on here. And of course, we're going to be starting with frame of reference. So I think it's this one. There we go. Welcome to frame of reference. All right. So basically, this comes down to, traditionally, we would draw on a piece of paper. And that piece of paper itself would be a frame of reference. A very interesting thing about frame of reference paper and where we live. Okay, our homes. Our squares are like rectangle shapes that, are extruded out. But basically, we live in these boxes that are confined within certain framing. Windows that we look out of are usually this kind of framing. Sometimes this kind of framing. Oops. There we go. Right, sometimes they're long. Right, our phones. Right, we got our nice, wonderful mobile phones now. Right, I hearken to an age when we didn't have mobile phones, so this wouldn't have been as much a thing for us. But that's our frame of reference, right? We have this. We're referring to whatever we're dealing with within that frame. So it's called a frame of reference. Okay, television, theaters, movie screens, and all of that is probably the most important, and it's somewhere around there. Okay? All right? Some people feel that it's great to create your film in a golden ratio. Okay, oops. There we go. The concept of the golden ratio, something worth Googling to check on, is this. That we have right, and I gotta see if I can get this right now. Yeah, I can't start with the large one. I gotta do it later. So we start with a 1, then we start with another 1, and then that 1 becomes a 2. Right, 1 1. This is a Fibonacci tiling I'm doing right now. And then 1 and 2 becomes 3. There we go. All right, oops. Is that going to be long enough? Okay. And then the next one will be 2 and 3, which would be 5. And then we'd have 3 and 5, which is 8. And that's our Fibonacci tiling, okay? What a lot of times people will do is they'll take this 2 and 1's here. So let's do this. Actually, yeah, we'll do that first. We'll just get rid of those. I'll grab this, and I'll move it over to there. So we have our 3 there now. And not sure if you're familiar with the Fibonacci number sequence, but from the Fibonacci number sequence, we can do this. I think it's something like that. All right. And if you do it accurate, which I'm just sketching it, so it's not very accurate, because that's going to be a lot wider like this, you actually create something that's called a French curve. And you'll see that. You'll see it, drafts people use it. And so it just, these French curves work on this whole concept of the golden ratio. But nonetheless, our screens become very close to that golden ratio. We'll probably go with a standard, especially because storyboarding deals with video games, television features. This aspect ratio that we're dealing with is basically this aspect. Okay, so as an example, 16 by 9 seems to be a pretty digital video. DV aspect ratio of 16 by 9. Okay, all right. There are ones that are going further that are getting a little more confusing. I guess I could do. There's like a more feature, feature film based aspect ratio that a lot of movies are being done in, and that's a 1.85 by 1. Okay, so these are just different aspect ratios that end up creating a certain framing. Okay, everything we do is in this frame of reference. We refer to subjects that we're looking at in the frame of reference, and that's why it's important to understand this whole concept of frame of reference, and that's everything we're doing. Whether it's the framing that we actually create, it's our actual monitor screen, it's a window we're looking out, everything we're looking at, look out the window. So your window becomes your frame, your framing for what you're referring to through the window. Okay? So very important to understand that as our first bit. The next one's a horizon line. Okay? So I'll bring back up a frame of reference. Okay, so we have a frame of reference again. All right, getting a little bit more featurey, I guess, with it now. The horizon line is basically the horizon. And the whole concept behind the horizon, so I'll stick the horizon, we're outside and we're looking across like a desert plain. So we could actually detect a bit of a curvature, which of course is the curvature of the Earth, right? That's what's being played upon here when you're seeing way off in the distance. You're seeing the curvature of the Earth, because when you're indoors, you're going to see a flat, straight floor that's perpendicular to the walls, right? It's not going to have much of a curvature unless it's a strangely built floor in a house, okay? So what's going on here is this. Okay, so we can use a camera as one concept, and on a different horizon line, we'll use someone's head. Actually, let's do it this way. Okay. Okay, so there's a person, there's their eyes, and so they're doing this. So their view and how they look is in reference to the horizon line. So what does that mean? So I'll put the camera on a rig, on a mount, rig it, and have the dolly or truck that it's sitting on. And we'll have this person also. Ooh, short legs. Look at that, eh? Let's make their head a little smaller. They're looking a little too young. Okay, let's just get them a little older, a little bit taller. All right, there we go. Okay, so equal proportions, one's higher than the other. And of course, we have the camera also looking out. So what's going to happen is, and I'll grab this. Okay, copy, paste. And I'm going to shrink this thing down to basically where we can't even see it anymore. Let's do this first. Okay, there we go. Gonna do this. There we go. All right, we'll go in a little closer just so we can get an idea of it. So what's happening here is, this person, and there's the camera. So let me just get my brush up. We'll look off into the distance. All right, way off in the distance. And there's the camera looking way off to the distance. All right. And they'll go for whatever, right? The idea is that it'll all converge way off somewhere. And the ground will end up meeting, not this way. This way we go infinite, and that's what we're dealing with. And of course, the reality is this is happening, right? It's a bit of an arc up because of the Earth, and it's going to make its way back down around miles away. All right, so now we turn it around. And now we're going to see it here. So I'm going to throw in my frame of reference. Okay, so there's my frame of reference, and there's my two horizon lines. Okay, so I only can use one because either that or we're going to have a blurry vision, right? We're going to have double vision. We're going to be seeing things from two different perspectives. So we don't want that. So things get smaller the further away they go, right? So that plays upon, if I'm right, I guess I should double check this before I go. Let me go up here. Let me add a piece, and I'm going to go lens convergence. And horizon. Oops. Okay. All right. Let's see if I can find here. So what I'm doing is I'm going on the wonderful internet, and I'm taking a look at, right? This is what we're getting to right now, right? With our vanishing points, which will take us to the next one. I'm just hoping they will show a diagram. Here's our lenses. Our lenses, like the lenses that we make from cameras, are basically duplicating what our eyes, the lenses from our eyes do. So I want to do this. I'm going to go copy. I'm going to go Google. Then I'm going to go paste. Then I'm going to go images. Because these are all showing pictures but I actually want to see if anyone's shown what's going on from a profile in a lens. Okay. Look at that. That's a nice one, eh? Natural perspective. This is actually everything that's going on, which is fantastic. But I really would like to see an actual indication of lines going through a lens. And how the convergence works. They're not going to do it, are they? Oh, look at this. This is getting close, showing what's happening. So it's good. It's good. Come on. That looks nice. Kind of what they're showing here. All right. There. It's going to be a lot harder to do it. That's something that maybe I'll make it just a quick video on later, because it looks like I'm not going to get a good shot at that one. But what I was going to do is I was going to draw an actual lens. So there's the actual lenses in cameras, telescopes, glasses, right? And they usually have something like that going on. But in a lot of ways, it's not much different than an actual eye, right? Where you've got that's your lens, and you actually have muscles on here that change that lens length. Okay? So what's happening is light's coming in and bouncing off and hitting the back of your eye. Okay? And that's your screen, your retina on the back, right? So it's this part that we do. Our information's coming in on an angle. Because of that, there is this convergence that happens. So this is the convergence that we see, and it plays upon the same concept with a lens and the convergence we see. A lot of what actually happens on our retinas are upside down because of the convergence that happens, that it goes through our eye. So when we look out, we're looking out through a lens, okay, whether it's our eye or whether it's an actual lens. And this is what creates the convergence. So if I'm observing my frame of reference from the right side of my frame, right, and so it's this guy here, and we go with a 1 point for now, oops, then this is the converging lines, right? This is creating my perspective so that I can create an illusion on a 2D field, what's actually being seen in 3D. And there's my plane, right? Now this is the horizon way over there. So as an example, say I'm in a warehouse, and then my floor would end here, and these lines would converge from here. Right? We're in this big room. If I was in a small apartment, then the line might end something like this. And then that would be my apartment, right? So you can get a good feel for scale there. All right? So that's what's happening. Wherever our horizon line is, and now we're going to go to be storyboard artists, right? That's our horizon line. Horizon line. That's where our camera is. So when we do our frame of reference, and we have this, and this becomes our horizon line, that's where our camera's viewing it from. So if we play upon that same idea, then I could have a person standing here, because the camera, say, is only, maybe 4.5 feet off the ground. And maybe this person is closer to 6 feet tall, right? So let's make the head a little bigger. do this, right? We can kind of see that the camera is going to be viewing it through the solar plexus or sternum. And we have our character. And of course, because of the lens we chose, that's how we'd view our character. We'd view our character in that size. And the different lenses we use will change that. Okay? But again, always important, this is our horizon line. And the reason why our horizon line is so important is, excuse me, so here's our frame of reference again. I'm going to put my horizon line way down here for this frame of reference. Let's make this red so we know that this is connected to this. Okay? So what's happening is I'm looking up towards the ceiling or the sky so that my environment now will look something like this. So what am I looking at? I'm basically probably looking up at the sky. Oops. Let's get that right. There we go. Right? So that's, and this is a 1-point perspective again, which we'll be getting in soon. But there we are. Look at that. Right? That's looking up at the ceiling. That's looking at the sky. So what's going on here with the camera? Well, if the horizon line is here, because this is where the camera is, and we're looking up, right? So let's look at this. Let's see our target. Our target is moved up by about that much. So say I'm looking out here. Right, my target's there. I'm all of a sudden doing this. So my camera is tilted like that. Right, and that's what it's viewing. That's that one. And this is this one. Okay, so if we want to let the audience feel like we're looking up, something is higher up than our reference and our camera, then that's what we're doing, and that's what we're playing with. We're playing with our horizon line to do that. Okay? And now we go to the next one. Distance scaling and convergence. So I touched on it on the horizon line, but the difference is I want to bring in my lens as well. Okay, so I'm going to do 2, this, and underneath I'm going to have a camera. And remember, I'm dealing with lenses here, okay? Because I will be doing a different effect as well. And there's my other camera. Let's make sure these cameras are lined up. There we go. Probably doesn't matter, but good practice. All right. And just get in the thing for that. So I'm going to go with wide lens here. I'm going to go with a long lens here. So a long lens will basically reduce the amount of distortion because of how much is being seen in the frame of reference. So a lot of times a good way to explain a long lens, if this is my regular frame of reference, this would be my long lens point of view of that frame of reference. Okay? So I'm basically enlarging this section to be my full frame of reference. Okay? All right, so now we go over here. We throw in a horizon line. And we'll do it like this for now because same horizon lines. But we have a wide lens. So what the wide lens is going to do, depending how wide we go, is it's going to create an environment that we can see a lot. So if I'm going to use a person, I'll put the person there. And we can see how much space I have there, how much space I have there. So how does that work now? So if I put my person here, oops, right, let's do this first. Why? Because if you notice, my person is basically, the horizon is probably at their knees. So I can do the same thing here, right? Foot, knee, upper, up, and then head. So there's my person, okay? And just to be consistent and accurate, I'm going to do the same over here, right? Okay, so both cases, horizon is the same and distance is the same, okay? The only difference now is what I'm showing here, so I'll get to that in a second. So what is that? That means that I'm seeing, pardon me, about this much here and about that much there. So that's my lens. So the first thing I have to do with this one is I'm going to have to tilt it, okay? All right, why? Because I'm seeing more of the top. So my center point for that is about here, right? If I go halfway, see? Halfway. So now all of a sudden, wherever my camera is mounted to, that becomes my new camera angle to match what I had drawn. Okay, and then I do this. Okay, oops, look at that. If that's the case, then that's more like that. There we go. So that's up there somewhere, okay? So that is my wide lens, okay? My wide angle lens. Now I want a long lens. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to think of my tilt, but I want my tilt to be here like that. So it's down at the knees, but I want that to be my shot. So, same thing. I go here, I do that, I do this, and I do this, and I do that. Okay? So that's actually going to be my thing. If you notice, they're kind of close. I went a little bit down there. I could have done it there, but I didn't. Okay. So, now, I want to lengthen my lens so I see this. All right. So basically, I'm going to see about 4 heads in here, 1 head from the top. So I'm going to see this. That looks about right. Close enough. I can jig it as I go. You see what I'm seeing here? I'm seeing neck. Definitely going to see the shoulders and the sternum. So this head has to be bigger. There we go. Neck, shoulders, and then sternum. Something like that. Okay? Now, something to also be aware of is horizon line, right? So horizon line was at the knee still, so it has to stay at the knee. So what that basically means, okay, is because I zoomed in, oops, let's do this. There we go. Because I zoomed in, that doesn't change my horizon line, but it does for my frame of reference. Because here's my frame of reference, there's my horizon line. My horizon line is way down here now, right? Because of my tilt and because I've zoomed in. In this case, everything's fine because it worked all within the horizon line and what was going on. Okay? Where the camera is. But in this case, I've zoomed in so much, my horizon line's way down here now, and I have this going on. All right? The horizon line is still where the camera is in relationship to the target, right? So remember, it was at its knees. So finish drawing my character, and there you go. There you have that horizon line. Okay? It's very important to recognize this. Very important to realize that this is going on, right? Because this is what's happening. This is the this is how things are playing. We still have our convergence happening, right? But you can see what happens with distance scaling and convergence. In this first one, with a wide angle lens, I decide I want to put another person in, and I'm going to put him here. Okay? I'm going to put him here, but I'm going to put him off to the right. Okay? So, he's come forward. How much forward has he come? Right? Like this. So he's basically almost half of this thing. So he's about this size now. Right? Remember, our camera's target right on him. So we do this. We do this. Right? And there's our convergence, or, that's happening. Right? Head's probably a little bigger. And there's the body. Right? If you want to make sure that that works right, you can also just measure off this way. Right? And by the time you get to here, you can see. And you can see that I'm actually off by a little bit. He's a little bit taller like this. Okay? That's the convergence working. So now I'm going to put someone really close. They're on the same ground for this part of referring. Let's put them here. And now they're here. So if you notice, they are cut off at just about the knees. I'll put them on this side and their head's up here. So they're like this. So they're all the same height. They all have to be cut off at the knees, so I already messed up, right? So I gotta go like this, Maybe it's a little lower than the knees. Yeah, it looks a little lower than the knees. Maybe here. Or a little higher than these, sorry. So we can get this happening. So that's it, right? So they're all the same height at different levels of convergence. And if we have to make sure if that works, we can do this and it'll work, right? Oops. See that? There we go. That'd be their height. Okay, so you can see, right? Look at the torso. Let's get that torso in right, so we can play on those proportions correctly. You could start seeing. You could actually play on those proportions too, right? So there's the waist. There's the waist. There's that part. There's this part. See? And there's that part. Oops. Yeah. Look at that. Oops. Look at that. I get that. I got that wrong. Probably the height here. Yeah, look at that. That's why. Right? My accuracies aren't the best. But you can see and you can test it. And it's always important to test it. It's a very important concept, what I'm showing you here, because let's back that up. There we go. We have our frame of reference. Say we have a house in the distance. I'm trying beyond my frame, right? My frame of reference, very important. I'm going to let the our reference point come to there, so that's going to be our point, our perspective. I'll do this for the house. Right, there's the house coming back. Okay. None of that's important. What's important is I come here, and I draw the door. See that? Okay. And then let's bring up that horizon just a bit so that I can do this. Right? So I can actually have a bit of that going on there. Then I can do this. I have this walkway coming from there. Right? So there's my walkway. What's important too is I have a person here. It's not that I have a person here. I actually have a person way over here. Okay? But what do I need to know? I need to know this is my door, and this person is probably about 6 feet tall, and doors, especially exterior doors for houses, are 7.5, sometimes 8 feet. So we wouldn't want to go that much more than that, or much more than that. And then I'm going to do this, right? So remember what I did? I took it out to here, because this is where the guy is going to be. And this is where the guy is going to be. So a guy in this shot, from this perspective, will be this high here to go to a door that size in scale. Okay? So this pretty much will cover so much for you, because now once we go to 2-point perspective, this concept of the scaling and convergence with your lenses will make a big deal. Okay? All right, lens length and scale. So I've done that one specific. Okay, so you've seen what I did in the last one because of convergence. You can see how they all work together. You're going to have lenses that are 20 meters, holy crap, be a massive lens. We're gonna have lenses that'll be excuse me, 18 millimeter lenses versus 80 millimeter lenses. So I'm just gonna go lens diagram. All right. Oh, see, that's what I was looking for. Okay. All right, let's do this. This is showing also what I wanted to show from before, right? So here's our lenses, right? There's that convergence that I talked about, called convex, right? They show how things enter and then how they cross over, right? And this is how that plays upon concepts of convergence and such. And if you look, they'll show you, right? They'll show you the different parts of the lens, a concave lens versus a convex lens, what it does, what the effects are, okay, what'll happen, right? You can see how when you have your convex lens, everything converges. In a concave lens, the opposite will happen, right? So some people may call that, like, get it closer to a fisheye lens, right? But anyway, here's our focal length, okay? But then there's also a lens length. So let's see if they show us in these diagrams a lens length versus a focal length, right? The focal point, okay? Right, which was usually done in millimeters as well. And it plays upon some certain concepts. There's actually some real good stuff here. So I just didn't ask the right question to Google when I did this, right? This one definitely shows it a lot better and shows what's actually going on and how it affects how we draw. Okay, so I'm going to go back into here and I'm going to go lens length. And I'll get rid of diagram because I got the visuals now. Oops. Lens length versus focal length. Okay. Here we go. So focal length. I want images again. Images are always the easier ones. Okay. So we got our lens focal length. Okay. Here it is. Okay. That's our focal length. There's our lens. So let's see if we can see where they'll start showing it. Focal length. Look at that. See that angle of view. 16, right? Wide angle lens, 16 millimeter, 400 millimeter. This is a great little example here too. Okay, all right. And this is how we play upon our the word I want is our focal length here, because with a zoom lens we push out our lens so we make our focal length longer, and in turn creating different things, right? So I just want to see here, 50 millimeter, 70 millimeter. That's great. It's done as a drawing. So telephoto, wide, cool. This is great because this is messing with both. This is a 200 millimeter, but this is also getting in closer. This is a 20 millimeter. Oh, sorry, the other way around. This is further away and then 200 millimeter lens versus this is closer, but it's, yeah. Okay, so look at here. We have a 50 millimeter lens, 35 millimeter lens, right? So you can see all these different things being brought into play. I'm just seeing if they'll show. Okay, let's go back to all. So they do it all as focal length versus focal distance. That's probably where I'm talking about lens versus, okay. The millimeter numbers on your lens is your focal length on your lens. Just the same millimeter numbers in your lens. By turning it, you can easily see the differences. Focal distance has to do with focusing on your subject, meaning how far away they are, right? So yeah. So you can see how things will change depending upon the lenses you use, because of how you play on it. But it's definitely worth understanding. Okay, so try to be aware of that, right? That what's happening on basically how we're focusing on whatever's at our focal distance, right? So the more we do this, right, our telephoto lens, as it was called, right, versus our wide angle lens, okay? And you can see how you can see more information, okay? Now, this is probably going to bleed into the next one that I'm going to talk about, the next category. But if I do this now, this will really, I think, give you an idea of changing lens lengths, right? Or focal lengths. So I'm going to have my image, and I'm going to pick a character like this. Okay. And I'm going to put my horizon right here. Now, I'm going to kind of start indicating the use of two-point perspective. Okay, so take a look at my frame of reference, and I'm putting 2 points in. I'm putting them equal. So what that's going to do is it's going to create this, right? Okay. All right. Now I need to do this, and I need to do this. There's a reason for this. Now let's look at our frame of reference. Let's look at, by putting this here, what this does to our frame of reference here, and the difference of our converging lines for our frame of reference. How much more extreme. And what do I mean by extreme is, look how many more perspective lines I can get in because of where I put my points. If I put my point way out there, right, this same line will be here. Look at this. This line will be here, right? So at some point, things start changing. You can see the difference in the angles on what we're looking at, right? Okay, so I'll do here like this, a perpendicular line to that to see my angle. Then I'll come in here and I'll do this, a perpendicular line to see my angle. So you can see these angles are more like these angles, right? So what's the big deal about that? So it's the same, the same focal distance, but now we go in really closer. Look how far away our perspective points are. So there's going to be less distortion. There's going to be less convergence, right? Or less extreme convergence. Because convergence is always convergence, but it's how extreme the convergence is. And that's by these 2 points. And that plays upon everything we're doing and how that works in with our lens length and our scale. So if I were to get someone closer on my wider angle shot, right? That would be them. And this would be my my extremeness of it. Okay, so what we end up having, if you notice, is a more extreme angle, and our ellipses in this case with the head are also going to be more extreme. Okay, so that's that person, and all it is that they're closer to us. They're closer to us, so the only way we can see all of them is so if we go with a wider shot, right? If we widen up our shot. Now, if you take a look deep down in here, again, it's not as extreme. So what's going to happen is we're not going to see as much distortion. It's like when you take pictures with a lot of your phone cameras, especially the older phone cameras, the lenses were so small that these points, right, in the wide angle of our lenses became more extreme. And so you end up getting bigger noses and a bit of distortion in that look. But if you have someone take a picture with your camera and they back up, right, they back up, say, 20 feet, and then they zoom in and take a picture, it's a much nicer and flattering image because it's more true to life. Okay? So that's the concept and the play on that. But always remember your scale, right? The scale of something always needs to be reflected, and you saw that in the shot, the example I did before with the door and a person. Wherever they are in their environment, you almost have to mark the scale at the door to make sure that you have the right scale of door to person, right? So whatever the play is, okay? And 1 point perspective. Here we are. Really straightforward. We have so much information now that we're dealing with. So in reality, we constantly, I think it's 4 point perspectives in reality, because there's a lot going on, a lot being played on, because there's subtleties. But when we're illustrating, when we're drawing, and a lot of times what we witness in camera lenses, right, in views, especially the longer lenses, we don't see a lot of that. But if we're seeing something straight on, so here's my horizon line, and everything I'm looking at, I'm seeing straight on, right, that it's flat towards me. That's when we use that 1 point perspective. So I'll put a line like this. So, oops, oh my gosh. Take 3. There we go. So this is basically our reference point. This is what we're viewing, whatever we're viewing. So we're viewing something square dab in the middle. So this is my 1 point perspective. These are my horizon lines. If you care to use a ruler, it's a good idea. Okay? But that's my horizon lines. And these are my horizon lines. Right? So this is how the sky and the ground also converge over in the horizon. So anything I draw on here will be drawn on this horizon line. If I decide that I am going to rest the person's chin on my horizon line. Okay, so now I have to draw the rest of them. Okay. So remember, I'm resting their chin on the horizon line, which means that our camera is about at that height, right? That's how we're viewing all this. And because we're seeing a bit up, our camera's probably angled something like this. Right? Okay. So finish off here. And we'll just get the arms in this time. Now at the side. So there's a nice little trick here. If everyone's the same height, then I could put someone that size. Let me finish this person off. Let's make this person about this tall. Okay. Ooh, nice. Look at nice spindly legs. Okay, maybe just a little less, so they're not like super like basketball player or runner or sprinter legs, right? Okay, so now, remember that's my point on my perspective. So if I do this, it's going to be there. So that's the size, but then I'm going to track it over to there like that. You see what I'm doing there? Okay, so there's that. So I'm basically creating my character here. Okay, and then tracking them over to there. Okay, because this is my perspective point, but this person I wanted to put here. So there they are. So they're the same height with their chin resting on the horizon line, and that works here as well. I can go like this. Now, if I go like that, I have to do the same thing. I have to track over to the point where that is that size. We all know that works, but then watch this, right? So now we know that the shoulders are going to start there, right? And also goes way off here somewhere. Yeah. So let's back it up. Let's probably go to the knees again. Okay, there we go. And yeah, see, it's right at the knees. So we come to here, get our neck in, we get our body in, right? And if you want, you can do the same stuff. You can go like this, and the body goes to there. You see? You do this, and the abdomen goes down to here, right? Oops. Look what's going on here now. It's totally off balance. There we go. It's better. Get the arms in. So you can see they're all the same height. They're all, say, 5'7", 5'8". But all of their chins rest on that horizon line, so they always must. And then, but from that, you can also create your different bits here. So they're all the same scale. They're all the same size, right? It's just wherever they are in the environment will in turn create this dynamic that we're playing on. Okay, that's playing upon 1 point perspective. Now, all that really means is that it's really simple because they're all looking straight. Okay, so if I were to throw a cube in here, right? Maybe it's an outhouse, right? So I'll go like this. I'll make it just a little bit more here. I'll go across, and then I'll make the door like this. There we go. And so now I'm making my outhouse. Okay. So there's my outhouse. There's my cube. Because where I put it, I'll never see the sides. But if I have another outhouse over here, oops, there we go. Try to get the same scaling, which I have now. Right? Now just bring that roof across, make sure I'm centered. Right? Now I can go and I can do this. Right? So plain and simple, this is how we see things. And oops, that's a little too much. That's extreme. There we go. Right? I mean, that's the thing about outhouses, right? They're not very deep, right? They just have to be big enough to hold a toilet, and you do your unsavory business there, right? But there you go. And then that's playing upon that 1 point perspective, and only on 1 point perspective. It's assuming that the other point, quote unquote, is actually parallel to each other, right? Because they're just so straight on perfect, which I guess kind of happened, but because of the way lenses work and fall off and everything, in reality, in film and such, and it'll be a little different. But for what we're using it for, and our intents and purposes, it should work just fine. Because of our sizes, the size of our lens or our eyes or our cameras, and in respect to what we're viewing, right? So I'm going to grab this now, and I'm going to take it to my next thing. Oops, I don't want the writing. Oh boy. Jeez, ooh, my aim is horrible. There we go. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to copy it. Turn it off. Going to turn this on. Paste. Okay, 2 point perspective. So our horizon line's the same. Okay, make it a little smaller. Okay, our horizon line's the same here. But we got a 2 point perspective. So what makes something a 2 point perspective? Well, all of a sudden, someone had a job to lay down these outhouses. And this middle house, they didn't put even with these other houses. They put it like this. There you go. And so this is its facing. And there's the other facing. So all of a sudden now we have this. So we go to the middle, right? Get the height right. Excuse me. Get the widths right? Like it would just be a little shorter there. And then I can do this. Right? So that comes higher. And that'll come a little shorter like that. Okay? So there's our outhouse now. And it's in the same environment, the same horizon, but because of its orientation, we actually view it with 2 point perspective. Okay? See how that works? Straighten those lines up. Go. Remember the roof. Now the roof is going to have the same thing, right? I'm going to go here. That's going to be there. And we're going to do this. Okay. And there's our angle of our roof. Angle of our roof. And there's our outhouse as it starts to rotate around, right? It's getting a little, what's the word I want? A little big. So I just want to make sure it's more to spec, right? As it starts rotating around our outhouse. Okay? So that really is 2 point perspective. That's what's happening between 1 point, 2 point. Whatever we're looking at, we're not seeing head on, and it's playing on that. And these points, if you notice, I rarely put them in the frame, because if I put them in the frame, then that becomes a very wide angle lens and things become really distorted. So if I was really close to these outhouses and I still wanted to see them all, then that would probably be that. That would probably be like these perspective points here. And then all of a sudden we would have something like this going on here. Let's see if I can get this for you. So this would have to go like that. See? Like this. Right? And then this. Okay? So this is, we would have to widen our lens, and in turn what would happen is we would have this more of a distortion happening. Okay? So now we'll keep our lenses here now for our next step, which is going to 3 point perspective and how that plays. Okay? So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to go to here. There we go. 3-point perspective. So a 3-point perspective what's happening is we have a bigger outhouse that we want to look at, and our current view, right, so let's go to blue. So bear with me here. So I'm still going to use these ones of the original outhouse ones, but we've widened our lens, and we've widened enough that we can see this whole thing. What are we looking at? Well, we're looking at something that's starting here, right? So that's its base, right? So it's in front of these houses, but it's this tall, okay? It might be the same width as the outhouse, which could be fun, so we can play with that, okay? But to be that tall, I need to make my framing, right? Let's do this. Let's add one, because this is a better way to do it. Come on. Add one. Thank you. So I'll go like this. Okay, good. That was weird. Wouldn't let me do it for a second. So if you notice what I'm doing, I'm just creating these crosshairs. Okay. Excuse me. And now I'm going to get a wider shot in. I'm going to open up my view, get a wider angle lens in there. So the easiest way to do that is to do this. Right? There we go. And that becomes our new frame. Okay? So I can go in here. This is our frame. So you can see how much smaller those other outhouses are. And look at our points, right? So let's get that horizon line getting a little better here. Good. And now all of a sudden, whatever it is, let's have fun. Let's make it that size. So if I do this and I do this, that's the width of the outhouse this close. See? So that means my outhouse would be about that wide. Okay? So now that my outhouse is that wide, I have to rotate it, right? Because it's got to be on these 2 points, because I'm doing a 3-point perspective. Okay, so there it is here, and there it is here, like that. There it is. Okay, so now all of a sudden, I've got this happening. Okay, keep it nice and light. Okay, there it is. Okay. Now, because we're seeing so much of it, and if you see how the convergence is happening, how extreme it gets, this is where things get very weird. And this is where you actually can introduce, and it effectively becomes its own horizon line. Say for space, because I don't seem to have a lot of it at the moment, I'll put it here. So that becomes my new horizon line for there. Okay, so then I can go in and I could target that. And now we've got that happening. Okay, so that's that horizon line. So now this one, because of how big it is take a look here. There's almost nothing here. It's almost not even noticeable. It's almost negligible. It's so little, right? This one's straight, and that one here would do that. You see? But as you continue, it gets more noticeable, and that's our wide angle lens having an effect. But not only that, what's also happening is these are also becoming more extreme. So if you take a look at the width here, these widths are the same, because the more you go on an angle, the longer it's going to take, unless of course your points shorten, right? You can see here how we're adding in our 3-point perspective because it's rising up so high. Right? Now it went up to here, so I have to go up to there as well. But look at that. Look at that extreme. Yeah. And then put the roof on there. Sure. So same thing, we go to the center, we pull it in, do the roof. Now the roof's going to be equally as extreme, right? It's going to have to be of the new, so it's going to probably be something like this. Something like that. We aren't even going to see the roof anymore, right? Because it's so high up there. Looks like this would converge a little bit more inwards there, like that. There we go. So that's that same outhouse that's been extruded up. And you can see that natural kind of propensity for it to kind of start working its way in because of how high up it really is. Okay? So that's 3-point perspective. That's what's going on. Works both ways, but if it's going into the ground, there's got to be a hole in the ground, right? Because we're supremely rooted on the ground. So if there's a big hole in the ground, or you're looking down let me go back to black. You're looking down from a cliff, right? So where you're looking way down in the grounds down there somewhere, like this. So there's our horizon line. So that's actually our focal view, okay? And then we'll have one somewhere up here somewhere for the ground on the other side of this cliff, right? So now you have your whatever, your irregularities, and as you're going down, right, these things all converge upon those irregularities. And you can see how you're starting to look down this valley, this gully, this cavernous, whatever you want it to call it, right? It's way down there, and then whatever, maybe there's a road down there like this. So that plays upon, that road plays upon this perspective. Right? See that? And this could effectively be like a 2-point perspective, right? So you could do that, but because we're playing with 3-point perspective, right, that's just the one view. We went with that horizon there, so I'm going to throw one here and throw one there. So then what I have is I can now create my grid on the ground. Right, and then do the opposite. Right, that's a crazy grid. Let's widen that a bit, because that's going to be, especially because of how far away it is, probably more like that. And that one would be here like this. Right. Right. So just create this interesting grid, and maybe we'd even show the other side here, because where this is, we wouldn't see anything else, right? We would just have whatever our grid would be. So and then that's our grid here as well, right? So it becomes our grid. That becomes how we play on whatever we're doing here at the edge. Okay, and that's how we create, looking down into gullies, looking up into the skies. Now we play with our perspectives and our 3-point perspectives. Okay? Okay. So we'll do this, and that. And wait a second here. 3-point perspective. Force perspective. Incline decline planes and multiple planes. Okay, so I'll just finish off with that. It's just so that I make sure I get the entire catch-all for you. The concern about, there's force perspective. And this is incline decline. Okay, so let's go force perspective. So this is something that I was actually working on in a class for creative gear. But this is force perspective. This is a great example of how it works. And the one thing that you can do to really be able to understand and appreciate force perspective is to, another layer, there it is to basically get your camera and put it on pano vision, or pano shot. It's usually called pano or something, right? And if you take a shot of something and you remain still and you look down one way and then you do an 180 degree and staying in the same spot to look the other way, this is what you end up getting. Okay? So there's my horizon line, right? There's my horizon line. And everything works upon that horizon line. So look, see here? That's coming up and out. That's coming up and out. That's coming up and around. And there's an actual curvature that happens. And you'll see it. You'll see it when you take those pictures. But you can continue that throughout this whole thing, see? So it's basically trying to normalize itself to the other angle, right? So this stays still, and these just do that. So you can notice now the one that's on here doesn't look so bad. And when you realize your actual framing, everything works out well. As an example, if I decide that at this point down here, look where my horizon line is, right? So I'm going to decide that at this height, at the door handle height, I'm going to have a table, okay? The table is going to be about that far from the wall, but it's not going to be there. It's going to be out in the middle somewhere. So I'm going to do this. Right, so there's my straight, and it curves to something like that. Comes around the other side. It's going to be here. So even though there's a curvature like this, I'm going to just flatten that table out, just give it a little subtle curve, and then I'm going to do this. Now remember, look where we are. So we're smack in the middle. So we're actually going to see that table like this, right? Right for my horizon line. That comes out to here, and it literally is going to be out here like this. That's going to be my table. It's going to be a hall table. Excuse me. Maybe it's got a little bit of molding. Maybe it's got a drawer. And it's got like legs, right? We're not going to see any of that. That's off frame. But we are going to see that nice little doily on the table with a vase on this table. Now this vase is going to be about so high. So it's getting pretty high. It's still not as high as up there on the door, so the vase isn't that high. The vase is probably about that high, so that would be the vase there. And working its way out, right? So we're still seeing over it, so we do this. And we'll say it's empty. Okay? Just a place here. But that's the size of it there, and that would be the same vase and the size of that vase there. And that would be a force perspective that you can play on. And you can do that, and for storyboarding, that could be a neat little trick that sometimes you do. This is also looking at something from a really wide angle lens, right? Where you get all that distortion, right? So it's really, really amazing. I messed up down here. This actually would work its way off like something like this, right? Because it's going to go to there, and it's going to try to return, do something like this. And this one, because it's doing this, will return a little quicker, like that, right? So just so we get that clear, because there's a bit of a, I'm not sampling that the best, right? Because that's because of where horizon line is, where we're going to have more of an extreme, right? But this is how you can play and mess with force perspective. There are other forms of force perspective. A very famous or almost meme-like anime technique is to, you have someone running, and it's like some super crazy low angle, and the ground actually does this, right? Because they've gone with such a wide angle lens as this person is just racing forward, right? Right, foreshortening because things are so much more extreme, right? Oops, I don't like that. Ugh, that's horrible. Let's keep their things further back. Right, but they love having fun with things like this. So if we make this our bit like that, then we'd probably do something a little bit more like that, right? If we wanted to focus more on their side there or something. So it's really crazy, right? That what you can play with that. But yeah, lots of great examples you can look at for that. But that's what you're doing. It's really great with panel vision because what you can do with the panel vision, but it's being able to just go in really close to something and then widening the lens as much as you can to start seeing that distortion. Okay. All right. Let's see what this is. I wanna just checking something on the internet again. There we go. Oh my gosh. Stop that. There we go. There. Fantastic. Look at this, eh? So 28 millimeters, right? You know, when they say that about a lens, here's all our lenses, right? Here's our point of convergence, right? That's how we get these illusions of the convergence as things get further away from us. There's a great example of a wide angle lens. Look at the distortion here, right? Look at all this, right? And this is also a great example of that anime thing I was talking about, but this is a security camera, so you're not going to be able to get those kind of angles out of that, right? All right. So it's, there's a lot to learn to really understand what we're doing as storyboard artists and what we're playing with perspective. This is wonderful because this is talking about scale, right? So take a look at this. These are all the same can of beans in the same spot. They have not moved these beans at all. All they've done is, in this one, we're close. We're very close and 24 millimeter. So we have the most distortion. We have the most convergence, right? So look how far away they are. But all of a sudden we put a 70 millimeter lens on them and they look a lot closer. We put a 135 millimeter lens and they look really close to each other. And look here, like they almost look, they're right on top of each other. But they're not. It's all the same. They're all the same distance from each other. But because we're so far away looking at it, and then we zoom in so tight, this is what it looks like to us. It's brilliant. Okay? So there's a good thing, right, where we have our frame of references, right, versus our actual full frame lens projection. Okay? So it's just so clever how all this works and how filmmakers will use this to their advantage. It's this kind of lens, maybe this one here, 135, or even a 70 millimeter lens, that they'll do fight scenes in. So then it looks like the guy's close enough to get that punch to hit when they're not. But because of the lens we're using, it looks like the proximity is so close that would happen. It's really neat. Okay? So there we go. And there's our force perspective. So now we are almost at the end of this video. And we're just going to end with the last one. So let's just collapse this group. Close it. And get lots of incline, decline planes and multiple horizons. So what this is this is more about understanding enough of this that you can also do exercises to really help you understand what's happening. So I'll throw my main horizon here, and then I'm going to throw a horizon up there. What's that horizon for? Well, I'm going to do a stairwell. So the first thing I'm going to do for the stairwell is I'm going to get my 2-point perspective in, And I'm going to map out my lines. Oops, there we go. Okay, and do this, right? So you can see, and then I'm going to go up. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm creating this almost like a bounding box. So this is representing the space that my stairwell is going to occupy. Okay, so there's my stairwell, and that's the space it's going to occupy. But my stairwell is going to start, like this will be the first step up, right? So let's get that line in there. So with that first step up, it's got to raise to an incline up there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run a line through both, hit it to the ground, take it up, and then I'm going to take it to here. So I have my horizon line up here, but this is actually where the horizon line will go. This is my new horizon line for this plane of the incline of the stairs. Okay? So I go across. I do this, right? Because I've got to go through the middle. And I'm doing this. Okay? Then I can go like this. And there's my plane. That's my ramp. So now I can go in and go boom, right? Boom. And then boom. Boom. And then up, across, that way, up, across. And I can go and I can actually add all the steps for the stairs. Right? Figure out my riser and run and go along and just... Remember these ones here, because this is the actual parallel to the ground plane. This is obviously not. It's on a slope. It's on an angle. So that's how you would make stairs, right? That's how you'd make accurate stairs. Okay, that's how you would tilt. So now I'm going to have a cube, but my cube is going to be influenced by that horizon. And it's going to be one horizon line, but that's going to be the horizon line there. Right? So go like this. Right? I do that. I do that, and then I do it again. Right? So there's my box that I've created. That is not, it's just hovering in its own angle. And the way I can really make sense to how it's hovering in its own angle is then I can actually have it attached to another box that does this, right? So now it's connected to the stairs. Let's make this a little bit less that way. There we go. Now to the stairs. See? So that part's angled, that part down there is angled, but everything is making sense within its actual environment. Okay? I can then even go to as far as to continue my little convergence. Right? There's a way to make sure these are all accurate too, which I'll probably show you. I will show you. But now I can go like this, right? So now this is happening. So this piece is wedging in with that piece, right? And then I can go here and do the same, right? And then I actually sit and wedge into there. All right, and there's the tilt. There's the tilt. Look at this. This is tilted, so these are tilted, right? But this is tilted, this one's not. This is on this thing. So we'll have to have that. Okay? It's only tilted on the one side. Do you see that? So watch now. Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, so why? Because I only rotated it this way and tilted it forward. So this now, okay, that looks right. Right? If I tilted it both ways equally, then it had the same horizon. What if I didn't tilt them both ways equally? Oops, sorry, that's there. If I didn't tilt them both ways equally, right, then they wouldn't have the same horizon, right? They would start getting all the different horizons because it's this plane here, right? So let's go and do this. It's this plane that I'm working on. Let me do it over here because this will be a little easier. So then I go like this. I can do this. There we go. So I've tilted it on this plane only. If I tilt it on the other plane, then it would do this. Oops, now I have to go to the other side. Let me go to the other side. Let's go over here. And now I'm tilting it on this plane. So this is converging this way, but it's on this one too, right? So that's going to get really funky. Let me see if I can put this in a place where it makes sense. Let's put it over here. There we go. There we go. See? So now we've got it tilting here, but its orientation this way is still part of that. You see that now? That makes sense, eh? There you go. So you see what I did? I messed up. I thought, but it's always about the plane it's on. And it's both parts of the plane. Where is it tilting from and which part of its alignment or orientation. Okay? So that's the trick. That's the trick one must understand. Now the only other thing I didn't do here, which is I think equally important, especially for people that they've never been introduced to it, excuse me, is these steps that I did. On that flat plane, as things converge, right, things are getting smaller. So if this is my run, right, so you've got if you have a step, you have a rise, and you have a run, right? Run, rise. Or rise or riser, right? So if this is my run here, where's my next one going to be? Well, let's find our middle. And let's find our middle. Let's see if that works. Because if that's our middle, yep, look at that. So it goes through both, so that's good. So that's it there. I literally now grab a ruler. So I'm actually grabbing a traditional ruler right now to do this. So that's quite funny. Okay, because I want to make sure that I properly intersect through there to do that. So what am I doing there? So this is the same concept of if you have a plane and you want to find the center of that plane, you create an X, right? And then where they cross through, that's the center of the plane. If you notice in this case, right, there's less space between here and here than here because it's converging back again. So what we're doing is we're reverse engineering the plane where we don't have the box. We have these lines, so we know if we cross through the center, we'll get the next line. Okay? Now that I have my next line, I can do this. And then I can do it again. Get my ruler out. Go from corner to through center. And that'll tell me where my next corner will be. Okay, then go in to the next one. Oops. There we go. And you can go all the way back. So then if we did that over here, we'd make sure we'd ensure the right rise and runs as we went. Or sorry, the right rises. Sorry, the runs. The right size run, it would be, and then of course the intersection would create the rise, where the rise would go. But this works for that. It works for sidewalks, right? So if we were saying we're going from this to a sidewalk, if this is one sidewalk piece, then there's the next one. And there's the next one. It also works really well for, let's do this again. Let's go like that and like this. And now it's a highway. It's a desert highway, right? So we'll do this over here, right? That's actually probably not enough. It's a desert highway, probably more like this, right? Okay, so we do it on the side now. We decide this is going to be the height of my my power lines. Okay, so maybe I do this a little bit of an angle because we're probably looking up at these power lines. We get this little ceramic power line holders. Okay, so now that we have that, I can now go in and do this same thing, right? And decide I want my next power line to be over here. So now that I've found my next power line, I find the centers, right? And I can do this. And then I can do this. That's the next power line. And there's the next power line. There's the next one. So on, so on, so on, all the way down. And once I have that, because we're in the wonderful world of digital, I can just copy, paste, and make it the right size. Right? And also do that, so on and so on. And then from there, we can create our little wires. All the way down. And we've got that. You can see that I made these way too close together. It'd probably work a lot better if we had this. Oops, back to here. Come on, come on. There we go. We had this to this to this, right? That's like more like it would on a highway, but the power lines, the distance, they are apart. So that ends the kind of like the overall, the 101 on perspective, what's involved, what it entails, and where you put your perspective points and why, what's behind it, what's it being used for. Thank you. Have a great perspective career. Okay.